What's going on today? Who's on deck?
We have two. So Sumo Logic and Unity Software. Sumo is a cloud data mining company. Unity helps create 3D video games. No first trade just yet, but we're awaiting it, and we'll see how it does, especially after Snowflake and that 112% rally yesterday. So big ones next week, possibly Palantir, which of course some credited for finding Osama bin Laden. Also, Facebook founders Dustin Moscovitz's Asana, which helps organize workflow programs like emails and spreadsheets. And then both are expected to do a direct listing, which means they don't raise any cash, but they let the early investors cash out. Now, GoodRx likely to raise about $1 billion later on this month. And the unknown here is Airbnb, which is probably the high-flying unicorn this year. They were expected to go public in March, had to shelve that because they're decimated and affected by COVID.
What was that about Palantir? They're data miners, essentially,
yes,
aren't
right.
they? I don't know whether they use artificial intelligence or not, but you're telling me they helped find Osama bin Laden?
That's right. So what they do is they go through a lot of data on the internet, and then they try to extrapolate and come up with answers and strategies, and that's what they do. But if we can quickly just talk about some of the controversy when it comes to IPO, since we've been talking about Snowflake and how blockbuster that IPO was. The controversy was, did the banks underprice this IPO? Because pricing an IPO is more of an art instead of a science.
Well, they priced it at 120.
Yes.
And the thing went to 240.
That's right.
So that's the fault of the bankers? They're at fault here?
So look, we have Bill Gurley, who's a very vocal venture capitalist, a guy who kicked out Travis Kalanick at Uber, and he says that it's probably the most underpricing that he's seen in 40 years. 2020 is the worst year yet. Now, I'm against lining the pockets of underwriters and investment bankers. They make enough money. So what's wrong with leaving some money on the table? But he suggests that in these IPOs, it's the rich that get richer because only the rich get access to the small tranche of shares available.
And Bill Gurley was the guy who knocked out Kalanick from Uber?
Correct, yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Yes, he is.
Osama bin Laden, Palantir, Uber.
You're learning today.
You're so good, Susan.
Just came out with a headline saying that Oracle and ByteDance have accepted revised treasury terms on TikTok. We don't know exactly what that looks like right now, but I can tell you earlier reports this morning say that Walmart will be partnering with Oracle, and Oracle will take a 20% stake in TikTok. And Walmart CEO Doug McMillon also expected to take a board seat of the newly formed board of directors for TikTok's U.S. operations as part of this submitted deal. 20,000 new jobs, headquarters now in the U.S. President Trump reviewing the deal today, as he mentioned, probably and likely to make a decision before the September 20th deadline, which is this Sunday. So this scenario means that TikTok's China parent ByteDance still keeps majority ownership of the social media app. Oracle now the watchdog over the data. And remember that this is not an outright sale of TikTok. It's a tech partnership, and the president said he wanted a full sale of TikTok. So is this enough to get through the China hawks, like the Peter Navarros and the Mike Pompeos? Is this enough to get President Trump to sign on to it?
That's what they're discussing at the moment, isn't it?
It is.
Is that enough?
Yes.
Is that enough? What, interesting, doing some digging on the IPOs.
Yes.
Tell me about today. What's on deck
So,
today?
we just heard Lauren talk about Sumo Logic, Unity Software as well, getting into the game today. Both of these pricing well above their initial indicated range because of how well Snowflake has done, and JFrog doing pretty well as well. But let's take a look at the upcoming IPOs that we are anticipating. So that does include Peter Thiel's Palantir, possibly next week. That's a big one. That's a data miner. And then also Facebook founder Dustin Moscovitz's Asana. A lot of buzz around this one. And this helps organize workflows like emails, spreadsheets, and chats. Both are expected to do a direct listing. That means they don't raise any new cash. It's really to let the early investors get out and cash in on the companies. GoodRx is another one, likely to raise about $1 billion later on this month. And Airbnb, I think that's a big question mark. That is a big unicorn out there that was anticipated earlier this year. They had to shelve that listing because of COVID and how it decimated the travel industry. In fact, they had to take and raise emergency cash.
But all of those companies on the screen, they're brand new, futuristic kind of companies, new industries.
Yeah.
I'd say new industries.
Disruptors, as we call them.
Disruptors.
Yeah.
Airbnb is certainly a disruptor.
Yes.
And I think the public wants in. It's an opportunity to get into these new industries.
Right. But I also wanted to get into the controversy, if we can, about the pricing of this IPO, given that Snowflake ran up 112% yesterday. And Bill Gurley, one of the venture capitalists, saying that, maybe there's a lot of mispricing in the market right now. But I would argue, what's wrong with leaving some money on the table for investors investors to get into, right?
Sure.
And he argues that maybe the best way to do this is to go through these SPACs, these blank check companies, but also, you know, the fact that you have very small amount of people getting stock in these IPOs, it means the rich are getting richer, not the retail average mom and pop investors.
That is true. If you've got a chunk of money, you can get in at the IPO price. If you've got, you know, the broker, you can get in. Okay. I'll leave that up to you. That's how it works. All right. Let's move on.
Is anyone critical of Susan when she's there? Do you want to tell her? She could probably hear you.
Never.
No.
She's sitting right next to me.
Never.
Well, 6 feet
Never.
apart. No, never.
6 feet apart. There's
She's
a
very
song like
popular.
that.
It's very popular, let me tell
For
you.
January next year, 2021, just in time for the CES, the Consumer Electronics Show. However, that huge event has been canceled for next year because of COVID. Still, the tunnel underneath the Vegas Convention Center is almost done, according to Elon Musk. Seems like well ahead of schedule, don't you think?
Nice.
So it will connect the convention center to the Strip, and it'll take you there in less than 2 minutes. Usually that trip in regular traffic, 15 minutes at least. So the loop is supposed to be able to move more than 4,000 people across per hour in a variety of Tesla cars, according to Elon Musk. And he says that any city that allows for tunnel depth that is, I guess, deeper than their tallest buildings would work for one of these tunnels. So think of New York and Beijing in the future.
I got that guy wrong.
You did.
I
A lot
dismissed
of people
him as a
did.
showman, and he's not just a showman. He is a showman, but he's a genius. What he's done is extraordinary. Tesla, the car company, the boring company, the space company, and God knows what else.
Neuralink.
Neuralink.
Don't forget that.
Let's not forget.
Yes.
What a guy.
Yeah. Well, that's why he's the third richest on the planet. So.
Well, it works for me.
Yeah, $100. And by the way, we're down today. I would still call this contained for a momentum play like Tesla that has run up 400% so far this year. And don't forget their Frankfurt shares also slid 4% last night. So that's following that type of performance. But look, we had Deutsche Bank and Credit Suisse both upgrading their price targets to $400 a share. In fact, Credit Suisse is slapping a bull case of $630 apiece on Tesla. And both of these investment banks are saying that batteries are the future key for Tesla. Credit Suisse thinks that Tesla's battery technology could be worth $100 billion on its own. And they predict that Tesla will sell its batteries to other electric car companies in the future. That will be a business one day. Battery Day next Tuesday, where Elon Musk has teased some exciting things to come. We don't know what they are, but he's a great salesman, great showman, and the market does tend to listen. But just to get back to the broader market sell-off that we're seeing, and as I said to you, with this type of explosive performance in these IPOs where people are rushing to buy in the stocks, these institutional investors like the hedge funds and the big pension funds, you have to sell off something in order to raise cash and money to buy into these IPOs. So that might be a reason why we're seeing some of these declines today. The entire industry has lost $124 billion so far this year and counting, owing to COVID, expected to be the worst year on record, worse than even the Great Depression, according to one report. 1.6 million hotel workers are out of work, and these jobs might not be coming back, or even the hotels themselves. And this is because nearly a quarter of all U.S. hotels are 30 days behind or more on their debt payments. That's the highest level ever, according to one analysis, and the greatest delinquencies possibly and likely hotel closures as a result in the cities of Houston, Chicago, New York, Seattle, and Austin. And we know U.S. hotel occupancy hit its lowest in March. 22% of hotels were full. It went up to 50% in August, but it's stalling a little bit in September. But we did see stock-wise some comeback, some recovery in the Hyatt hotels and the Marriott and the hospitality and leisure groups today. Well, for the month, actually.
Some of these industries have just been absolutely clobbered. Restaurant, bars, airlines, hotels, cruise lines, any form of travel,
airlines.
you got a problem.
And just to get back to the round numbers, you know, we have Amazon below 3,000,
Yes.
also Microsoft below 200, and Apple below 110.
And that's why we got the NASDAQ at the bottom.
You would imagine that more of their fans would probably want to bet on DraftKings. Now, for the Giants and other football teams that have signed up, they might get a fee, possibly a cut of some of the bets that are placed on DraftKings. Now, it's not just the Giants, because they've also signed a deal with the Patriots and also the Dallas Cowboys. And DraftKings has been on this deal spree. Remember, Michael Jordan joined on as a special advisor. He also took a stake. They also signed an exclusive partnership with ESPN as well. So DraftKings, by the way, is up 400% this year. And this is a great stock to feature because we are expecting U.S. sports betting still to bring in about $1.5 billion this year. And that should go up to $9 billion in 5 years. So think of the growth rates there.
Sure. Yes, these sports betting companies are have done very, very well this year. I still think we'll end higher.
It'll be tougher, but I still feel that momentum's there. You know, the fact that people are buying on the dip, I think it's a good sign that we might stay at these record levels.
You're desperate. You know?
Oh, that's nice.
Absolutely
that's really
desperate.
nice of you to say.
Welcome.
Sports question? What about tennis? Who won the U.S. Open?
Yeah.
Naomi Osaka, of course. And she protested for...
So they're trying to draw in new listeners with 70,000 new titles, including originals from DJ Khaled, who I know you're a fan of, and Will Smith as well. So these will be free across Amazon's music subscriptions and also ad-supported tiers. But they're playing catch-up because they're number 3 behind Apple and Spotify. I mean, you know Spotify just spent $100 million for an exclusive deal with Joe Rogan.
The Joe Rogan